Welcome to Contractor Fight Sales Podcast. I'm Derek Johnson.
And I am Tim Catroni. Derek, talk to me about influencers.
Oh, it's so crucial, man. It's so crucial. And it's in the sales process. And what happens with contractors, especially if they don't have a sales process, and we use the Shin Fu sales process here in Battleground, is step 4, the influencer. Like, really, who is driving the project? Who is the one that's really making the decision? So how many times have we went out to projects before we'd pre-qualify and meet with a spouse only to find out that there was actually someone else that held the purse strings and or was the creative and the one that was really driving the project, and it blew the whole thing apart because we didn't talk to that person. Has that ever happened to you, Tim?
Yeah, it's I call it, like Steve used to call it, the kiss of death. Because if you go over there, yeah, it's like, they're married, you see a wedding ring, and there's somebody else, and we didn't ask. All too many times. It is a sick feeling. So talk about correcting that, Derek, so we have a even playing field.
Yeah. So let me walk you through a little story here, if you will. So I reach out to a customer, just like we do in our sales process. We reach out to the customer. We ask them for pictures, and we ask them for a description of the project to tell us a little something. So we get on the phone, right? You go through the details and you understand the motive, what's motivating them. This particular client, they just really didn't like their water feature, and another contractor had built it. They didn't like it, and it's a concern for them. And I was like, okay. So I go through the motive and understand what their concerns are, and we get to money, and we agree on money, and we agree on the truth, right? That's step 3. So the truth is like, I know we agreed on some money, but there's a chance that I get out there and there's going to be something that changes the scope, and I need you to be okay with that. And then also, while I'm out there, if for some reason you just feel uncomfortable with moving forward and what we're doing, just feel free and comfortable to share that with me so that we know what's going on. I want a yes, but I'm okay with a no, but I can't have it. I think about it. So we go over the truth, and then we get to influencer. The influencer is his wife, which is great. But man, he's got this thing locked down and everything. And I said, well, what's her role in this? He said, well, she has her thoughts and opinions and kind of creative. Got it. Then we talk about consultation fee. We get through the whole thing. And I said, here's the deal. I want you to come by my garden center because I want to show you displays. Because what I don't want to happen is you guys have an idea of what it's going to look like. And once you see what we actually do, it's different. So as contractors, you may not have a display area like I do, but you have a lookbook, you have your website, you have project profile pictures. You can show a client what it's going to look like before you start the project. So fast forward till today. We meet at the garden center, and he gets there, and, it's introductions. And I said, oh, where's your wife? And I'm not going to use names here, so I'm going to refer to as wife. And he said, oh, she's a few minutes behind. So it's like, excellent. So let's just walk around. We're looking at some stuff, and we kind of go through, and she's supposed to be 2 minutes behind. She's 15 minutes behind. It's fine. So we go back through everything and walking around and showing her all the stuff and all the projects. And she's looking at it, looking at a particular pond that she's really interested in. And she said, so what happens if something like kind of goes wrong? Like, help me understand. And I'm going, oh, this is interesting. And I was like, what do you mean? Like, if things go wrong? She said, well, we've worked with a couple of contractors. We've had this house for 2 years, and every contractor we worked with, something has went sideways. And speaking of which, we just had a carpet person come, and they literally installed dirty carpet. And I'm like, what do you mean? It's like used carpet? She was like, no, I ordered white carpet, and I guess they were stomping it down to like flatten it out or something. I saw them. And then of course the designer came out, and they're putting like spray on it to like get it off. And she's like, I've got cats. I can put spray on it. Like, they finally worked it out, but it was just, things were not clear. And I said, well, ma'am, help me understand what clear would be to you. She said, well, I grew up landscaping with my dad, and he has a contractor background, and I've seen it happen with him too. For me, clear is like whatever we write out in a scope of work. And I went, oh, mirrored, right? I said, scope of work? She said, yeah, I want to make sure that everything is on paper, put down, knowing exactly what's going on. And I said, I hear you. I said, is it okay if I share with you like what it looks like operating with me? Because I want to make sure that you know. And she said, yes, please. I said, we're meeting. I'm asking you for a deposit today. And I could see how that's very uncomfortable for you. So how about I share with what my paperwork looks like? And I went through the details, the scope of work. We're going to do a pre-job walkthrough, and they're going to give me a deposit. And when we're done, this scope of work is actually a checklist. And if I don't hit everything on the scope of work, you don't pay me at the end. And she was like, oh, wow, that's exactly what I'm hoping for. And I said, it's going to be a formal quote. I said, look, can I ask you a question? She said, yeah. I said, did you feel like this was going to be like a handshake deal? And it was just going to be like on the old carbon paper, the old invoice. And she said, well, I really didn't know. And I was like, I'm so sorry that you got all the way to this point and you did not know what that looked like. So she felt very comfortable. Then we're walking around the water features and looking, and we're talking about drainage issues that they have and some landscape issues. And this whole time I'd been talking to the husband, sounded like he had everything locked down and leading this thing. Not at all. She understands drainage. This is her concern. She needs to talk to the neighbor. He said the waterfall was 3 feet high. And she's like, no, honey, I measured it's 5 feet. Like, she is running this whole thing, Tim. And this is where a lot of contractors get themselves in trouble because they're not organized. They don't have SOPs in place. And then check this out, Tim. We get all the way inside. They wanted to buy a water lily, so I walk them in and I said, do you guys have any more questions? And at this point, they're not ready to pay the deposit. No, I'm sorry. They were on the phone. He was, but they weren't willing to talk about money. So we always do a few podcasts about money's taboo and we don't talk about money. So I've got just nitrogenous waste on my hands from the lily. So I said, excuse me, I'm going to go in the bathroom and wash my hands. I wash my hands and I come back out. They check out with the lily and I go, guys, are you ready to put down that 50% deposit so I can get you on schedule? And they were hesitant. And I said, this is really simple. We can go back to the consultation fee where you pay me $500 and I'll come out. And now we're going to do an on-site consultation, not a pre-job walkthrough. If you give me the deposit, now it's a pre-job walkthrough. You ready for what she said, Tim? Well, I know it's a non-refundable deposit. So what if you get out there? What if you get out there and you see that this project is going to be more than that and you don't give me my deposit back? And I was like, oh, gosh, I almost said her name. I'm trying not to use customers' names. And I said, ma'am, I talked about this and what that looked like with your husband, but I did not talk to you about this. So let's talk about what that looks like. And I said, first off, like, did somebody not give you your money back? And his eyes got all big and she looked at him with big eyes and I just went, uh-oh, he's in trouble. And I said, here's the deal. We get out there and I talked to this with your husband. I said, if I get out there and I can't do this project for this said price, I can't do the project and I give you your deposit back. Now, we still consulted. I gave you usable information provided by a professional to make a buying decision. I did that and that's worth $500, but I will give you your deposit back. And she's like, you'll really do that? And I said, we have it in writing. That's part of our contract. Yes, I'm not going to keep your $4,000 just because it didn't work out. And I said, now here's the other part though. If I get out there and I see that I can't do this project for $8,000, I'll let you know. And also, if I can do it for $8,000, we're going to lock that in with scope of work. And unless you create a change order to do something else, that money is the money. And if I can't do it for that, that's me. That's on me. That's on my team. But outside of that, if it goes to 10 grand because you want to add landscape, it's not included in the 8,000. That's going to be a change order. So be okay with that. And you're probably not going to like this, but I collect deposits on change orders too. I don't wait for the end to get paid for a change order. So Tim, it was fun to go through this and rely on my training after all these years and listening and listening to other contractors and Steve and Tom and yourself and Anthony and Micah and just like all these years. And I put it all into place. Like when I came out of the bathroom after washing my hands going, you guys ready to put some money down?
Wow. Okay. Let me recap this.
That was a lot.
There's people listening or people watching, and they're saying, "Yeah, this is like story time with Derek." And it's a story, but it's a true story. It sounds so smooth. It sounds so polished. It sounds so a matter of fact because it's coming out of your mouth and because it's true. It's not like you didn't fabricate it. It's a true thing. But this is what we've been doing for so many years. But you just illustrated to people watching or people listening that this is what it looks like when you practice and when you role play and when you have a lot of real life situations. The best part about this whole thing, and I'm going to go, I get a lot of things going in my head. The best part about this whole thing is she led you through your process. She almost knew what the right process should be from a polished consumer, somebody who has been hurt and would probably I wish these contractors actually had a scope written out so I could understand it. And she just told you what was necessary.
Yeah.
What I wanted to talk about was you talk about that influencer. So many times we think we're talking to the person on the phone or in person who is the decision maker because they're assertive, because they're a matter of fact, They're professionals. They know what they want. Until we find out there's somebody who has a bigger influence over the project other than the person you're talking to. And you'd never imagine it because the person seems so sure they were ready to get going.
He had me convinced, Tim, like he did. He had me convinced.
And it doesn't have to be a D personality. It doesn't even matter. But he had you convinced. And so many times, Derek. I would have to say more times than not, there's an influencer. There's somebody has a bigger influence over the project and what's going to happen than the person you're talking to, more than not. For me, would you say that to be true for you?
Yes, absolutely. It's just, and you never really know who it is because he was so confident, as you said. And when she got there, his confidence dwindled. Like when she walked in and I met her and he introduced her to me and I met her, like you could tell that the alpha just showed up and it was not him.
Yeah, I've been there. The wife has, or the husband has he controlling the checkbook or the vision or the person actually using what you're putting in. And to make that mistake, and for people listening, if you're not asking, who else besides you and me is excited about this project? Hey, I know we've been talking for about a half an hour here about this great vision. Like, who are you going to be sharing this with? Sometimes I'll hear, that'd be my husband. Okay, so how does your husband fit into all this? Or, hey, it sounds like you're collecting information. What are you going to do with this information? I'm going to share it with my spouse. All right, well, how does your spouse fit into this thing? How do we make sure that person has their say in this? And they're going to tell you, well, I'll talk to them. I said, would it be, you could say, would it be a bad idea? All three of us get on the phone. And they're shocked. Like, you're going to take 15 minutes with me and you're going to talk to him too? Why wouldn't I? This is what I do. I get to talk to great folks like yourself with having exciting ideas. That's what we do. If you're not having that conversation, if you're not asking it up front, I can guarantee you, Derek, and anybody listening, it doesn't favor you not to bring that influencer up and find out who else is involved with it. In in a few situations, I think two off the top of my head, when I asked, it was a woman both times. I said, who else is excited about this besides, you and me? Who's going to be using this? Oh, my dog. Okay, does your dog want to be involved in the decision on this thing? Does he need to be there when we meet? It's like, he'll probably be there. What's his name? And then we get into that. But to not have that conversation, Derek, and the thing is, and this is another part of it, Derek, is and we have all these tools, right? These tree of life tools. And we have all these steps of the Shin Fu, but you use the tool that not everybody has the ability to use. And that would be a display pond or a design center. Like you have your garden center.
Sure.
So if you don't have a garden center, if you do not have a display pond or a display of what your work is, lean on your socials, lean on your videos, lean on past project profiles, any pictures you may have. And even if you have to go to Pinterest and like share ideas, use somebody else. You don't have to use your own stuff. You can use other people's. I think people get stuck on, hey, I don't have stuff. I haven't been in business that long, so I don't have pictures. Use somebody else's. It's okay. Is this what you wanted to use? Their names on it. So what? I wouldn't use the guy doing business next door to me, but there's a lot of contractors in the world you could use.
Probably not your competitor. Would not be a big deal. But Tim, I want to touch on one thing that was so important in this when he said, we say who else is excited about this project because we're trying to find out who the influencer is, like the real driver of this. He said she's going to have an opinion. That's how he thought it was. It wasn't, sure, by definition, it's an opinion, but she had all of them. His pain was he did not want this thing. He wants this thing to last. So he wants us to construct it in a way that lasts 20, 30 years, because in his world, it's the value of what we're doing for longevity and low maintenance. In her world, it was, how do I not have a bad experience with a contractor?
Totally different needs. Totally different. He said it was she have an opinion. Is that what he said?
Yeah, just an opinion. That's all.
Just an opinion. But he might have thought that that an opinion was a small thing. But in reality, Derek, it was the biggest part of the whole equation, that you had to satisfy her opinions or desires or needs or wants that you had to have. So that just being mindful of those, that word opinion. It's like, what? No. That's a major influence. That's the person you got to satisfy.
You see this a lot where the two individuals, you have the one that's just like, it's cool, man. And he was like, it's fine. Because he even stated that with the carpet issue that they had, and she was very upset about it because it was white carpet. I mean, if you that is so telling. When she said white carpet, I went, okay, this I got to pay attention to this, because if you have white carpet, that means you're a very clean individual, and that's unreal. Especially got cats, I don't understand that part. And she was upset about it and had the contractor come back 8 times to resolve it. She said she could use her own spray because she has cats, and he said, well, they got it resolved. So he's the laid back guy. She's not. I need to make sure that I get all the details right with her, because he's going to be cool with whatever.
Oh my gosh. Yeah, and here you are thinking you're talking to the right guy. You're at the wrong window. That's the next window over.
Yep, exactly.
Oh boy, guys. Watch your fear influences. Find out who's driving the bus, because it certainly most likely will not be the person you're talking to. And with that, I'm Tim.
I'm Derek.
Yeah, and we're going to see you guys next time.